You're planning to apply for a fiancé or marriage green card case and you're worried about what reasons can exist for the eventual green card to be denied to prevent the entry or potentially being deported for the foreign national applicant, the foreign spouse or fiancé who's intending to come move to the United States. It's a question we get a lot because they're wondering what are the problems that exist. We're going to go through the top 10 problems that create either inadmissibility or other issues to help prevent the foreign spouse or fiancé from getting U.S. status, a green card, and beyond. I'm immigration lawyer John Khosravi. Our firm, JQK Law Firm, focuses on marriage green card cases. You can download the Ultimate Marriage Green Card Guide, a 50-plus page guide on this topic. Go to our website, marriageimmigrationlaw.com. It's an easy website, marriageimmigrationlaw.com, to download the free guide and get information there before you consult with any immigration attorney about your case. So let's get started. The 10 things they look at. We're going to go over the major issues. They're all pretty major. Each of them have a lot to talk about. We'll give you some examples as we're going through it so you have an understanding of what's going on. But even beyond these, there's more. Law is the law, so it's inevitable. It's a lot of different stuff. And finally, this is like the 11th, the one that was in the beginning, the government makes mistakes too. So you can have a perfectly clean case, and then the government makes a mistake and denies them to fight to get it alive, or they change the rules on us without us knowing, especially during the Trump administration going right now. So things that are unexpected do happen. But these are the 10 ones historically that are problematic. I'll start with number one, false claim to citizenship. This is the nastiest one, so that's intentionally why I put in the first. If you're not a U.S. citizen, you vote, you're potentially registered to vote even, but more importantly, you get a job and you say you're a U.S. citizen, you show like a fake passport, or you claim to be a U.S. citizen, that's called false claim to citizenship, and it can not only lead to a case being denied, but forever being banned to the United States. It's the death penalty for immigration, false claim to citizenship. And typically it happens if someone is in the United States for many years working to get a job, they filled an I-9 form, that's a work registration form, to get U.S. work, and instead of saying they have status, don't have status, get paid cash, or something like that, they just say I'm a U.S. citizen, make it easy. Or what's even worse is the employer just fills it out for them because they know the person may not have status, and they mark that, okay, they're a citizen to get it done. If USCIS finds out about that later, they could say you did false claim to citizenship, blame it on you, even though you may not have done that, and then ban you for life from being able to get any benefit in the United States. And so unless very rare exceptions exist, like an asylum case or some other ones, but it's a terrible one. Number two is people that have overstayed or have immigration court history, those kind of stuff. If they're in the United States, potentially that could force them to get removed. If you're married to a U.S. citizen, the overstay itself is not as big a deal. Under Trump administration, they're trying to make it a big deal, again, as if you're married to a U.S. citizen. But if you're married to a green card holder, for example, in any case, that overstay can be problematic. Potentially, there might be 3 or 10-year bans. For example, if you overstayed in the United States for a year or two on a previous tourist visa and then left, you'll be subject to a 3 or 10-year bar. Potentially, it won't let you in. Or some people come in, they get caught at the border, they get expedited removal, then they come again, or they have deportation history, they leave, they sneak in again. That could lead to a permanent bar, which means you have to go outside for at least 10 years and apply for a waiver. It gets complicated, but people sometimes don't know this stuff. They file for the green card, and they're hit with this after the fact. Number 3 is unauthorized work. This by itself is pretty flexible. A lot of times you may still be able to get a green card unless, one, you claim to be a U.S. citizen to get the job, like I talked about before, or you lied about working. For example, you fill out a future visa application and you didn't mention that in the past you work in the U.S. without permission, or at the border you lied to an officer you're coming to work here without permission, and they find out by looking through your phone, and they give you expedited removal and accuse you of fraud or something like that in that removal order. All these could come back to you and prevent you from getting a green card. You have to file for a waiver if you have a qualifying relative, which you probably do if you're married to a U.S. citizen or engaged to one. But lying about getting work or certain types of work could be problematic and prevent you from either getting the green card in the United States, forcing you to leave and do consular processing. But these are issues that could pop up. Number 4 is misrepresentation or fraud, and this could affect a lot of different ways. So if you, in a previous visa application, a I-539, a change of status, extension of status, you work but don't mention it there. If you get a tourist visa and ask you if you had violations in the past and you don't mention previous violations or overstays, all this stuff could make you be accused of lying and prevent you from being able to get some sort of status without getting a waiver. And waivers are not that easy and they're very costly to get. One example in marriage kind of cases, like people apply for tourist visas. Typically, if you're a solo person, single, coming to the United States from certain countries, they're not going to give you a tourist visa because they're going to say, oh, you're going to come and stay here. And some people think they're very smart. They get a fake marriage certificate and say, I'm married, so my spouse is not coming, so I have a reason to return back to my home country, even with the tourist visa. It's only going to be temporary. They get the visa granted, they come to the U.S., years later, they overstay and they find someone they fall in love with, a bona fide real relationship. But then the government says, oh, you're married before, so how'd you get married again? That's bigamy. You're married to 2 people, That's against the law. You're like, no, 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 no. I lied. That first marriage wasn't real. One is they can then get you on misrepresentation or fraud. And kind of a weird thing is they'll say, well, we still think you were married, so show us proof you weren't married. So how do you prove something that doesn't exist? You got to get a single certificate, do all this extra work. Some countries you can't get that. It gets pretty nasty. But misrepresentation a lot of times falls because people fill out their forms incorrectly or without paying much attention to all the details, and inconsistencies emerge. Also, one problem that's really nasty that comes up, especially last Trump administration has started, is if you start a marriage green card case in the past, but you fell out of love with that person, you got divorced, but then finished the green card case, and then years later you get married to a second person, that second marriage will be real as well. The government may say, well, you applied for benefits in the past, try to do a marriage green card case. We think you lied in that case, even though you didn't get a green card for it or nothing. Show us proof that that first relationship was real too. And the problem is, like, okay, that relationship was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I didn't keep any records. I hate this person now. I deleted all my photos, all the evidence, because I don't want to even think about them. My new relationship doesn't want me keeping photos and memories of my old spouse. It's kind of crazy. And so how am I going to defend myself here? And that's it. How are you going to do that? It becomes really hard to do that. So be mindful of that. Number 5 is kind of expected. People with criminal history, criminal issues. That's something that can be problematic depending on what the things are. Drug issues are the worst. It's very hard to fix. I'll leave it at that. You really got to get all the records related to your case. Expungements, deletions of records and stuff don't count for U.S. immigration purposes. They want to see it all, and you got to be prepared to talk about it, go into detail, and get all the records original certified to be able to show it. Number 6 are health issues. This pops up if you have certain diseases that are contagious. A lot of times your medical checkup, they'll talk about it, and the doctor help you fix it. But it could also be people who are addicted to drugs or alcohol. They could have temporary bans and any waivers to be able to go. And there's a vaccine requirement. Some people don't want a vaccine. That could lead to a denial unless they get a waiver approved. So those kind of health issues do pop up. Number 7 are people of national security concern. It's not that many people have this. Historically, it was for Nazis or something like that. But nowadays, with the situation with Iran, it's been several years that, for example, in Iran, they have this paramilitary force called the IRGC. I'm not going to go too much detail into that, but they're banning all those people. So you have history with that. That's going to be a problem. Right now, as we're recording this, June 2025, the Trump administration has made it if you had talked bad about Israel or if you support Hamas or any enemies of Israel, that's a reason they could just deny your visa, even take away your green card. That's what they're trying to do. So those are 8 problems that could happen. So you got to be careful of that and not do any of that. And number 8, public charge. In the marriage green card context or fiancé visa context, you have to have a U.S. Resident or green card holder, someone residing here working, to be able to show financial support if the spouse or fiancé doesn't make enough money themselves. And if you can't get that, you get a denial. This is under the public charge feature of immigration law, where the foreign spouse who's going to be getting a green card has to have a financial response. If they don't, they're going to get denied. And the paperwork has to be well. They show, they have the income, a tax return, pay stubs, all this kind of stuff. And if you can't get that, it leads to a denial. That happens a lot, this form. And particularly it happens because people, when they do the case on their own, they don't fill out the form I-864 properly. And to add insult to injury, many times USCIS will mistakenly say if there's problems with your paperwork, even though it's not for the affidavit support. We see that pretty regular at office for the form I-864 affidavit support. And then we have to argue with them, like, no, you're reading the situation wrong. This is the proper document and stuff. But when people do on their own, they don't know what's going on and they get worried and stuff. We've just seen it so many times that, it's very, people always say it's so easy and stuff like that. This part should be easy, but it's not. The form is unnecessarily complicated. The boxes don't fill up in the way they're supposed to, and the government makes mistakes. So it makes it really hard for a person who on their own to know what they're doing. Number 9 is documents. One is if you're doing a marriage or fiancé case, documenting the relationship is real. And secondly, have your civil documents, birth certificates, marriage records, divorce records, police records, all that stuff in line. Frequently, we have people, like 10% of the time at least, their birth certificates have errors on them. The name is wrong, date of birth is wrong, it's late registered, parents' names are missing, all sorts of issues you wouldn't even believe happen. People when they're 35, 40 for the first time look at their birth certificates, whether they're U.S. citizens or foreign nationals, and they're like, oh, there's a big error on my birth certificate. I didn't notice it until now. And so some footnote for fiancé visa cases, one is you have to show that you met the fiancé once in the last 2 years in person. If you can't, there's a waiver for that, but it's hard to get. So you have to have that document in line. And also you have to have a personal statement for each person saying, I'm willing and able to get married within 90 days of coming to the United States. If you don't submit those, that's going to lead to denial in the fiancé visa cases. And finally, number 10 is just a catch-all. If you're a stowaway here, you have a J1 2-year home residency requirement, that could be a problem. If there's administrative processing, there could be delays. Travel bans could happen, which you just have one added by the Trump administration, and he may be, I report today that he may be adding 25 more countries to it. So all these could lead to bans too, and it's kind of unable to know beforehand on these. But the J1 I mentioned is people who came here in certain aspects of study or research or do work. They may be subject to a requirement to go to home country for 2 years before they can get a green card unless they get a waiver, and that gets complicated, and people sometimes do the whole case and at the end get denied, not realizing this is a major thing they got to be aware of. And going back to the documents and stuff, it's really just looking over all your visas, your travel history, making all sure all documents are correct. So when you hire us as an immigration law firm, these are just some aspects. This is probably like not even the full aspect of the stuff. We're analyzing our head in the consultation. We're talking with you with asking pointed questions that seem pretty simple. Like, why is he asking about that? But I'm trying to dig to try to catch these ahead of time so we do it before the government catches it. First of all, know we have a clean case. I don't want to submit a case I know it's denied. It's crazy. And then secondly, it's like, oh, if we catch an issue, how do we get a waiver for it? How do we plan this out? How do we explain this? What documents do we need to explain this? To be able to talk about this, that's what consultations are for, to start. That's when we get into the case, sometimes people think it's one way, and after hours in the case, we uncover another issue that person forgot about a lot of times. They forgot to tell us and just think about it now. Sometimes you have to request documents from the government, FOIA requests and stuff like that, Freedom of Information Act requests. You get copies of stuff to see what's going on. So there's a lot going on there, but these are the top 10 things with the catch-all at number 10, plus 11 I was talking about earlier at the beginning, which is what we have to analyze to try to prevent issues and know what issues may exist down the line for your marriage or fiance visa case. If you want to download our guide, go to marriageimmigrationlaw.com and fill out there. But if you want to just schedule a consultation, talk one-on-one, go to our website, jqqlaw.com/contact. That's jqqlaw.com/contact. Fill in the box there with your full name and contact information and briefly describe what you're doing, and we'll follow back with you. Marriage immigration is one of the things we love to do. It's almost always happy ending, so it's a very pleasurable experience to do, and that's what our phone focuses on primarily, along with entrepreneur visas and talent-based visas. But marriage is a core component, and that's why we have the guide there and thousands of videos on the internet describing every aspect of this process, and the guide was a culmination of that. Again, if you want to contact us, jqqlaw.com/contact. I wish you the best and congrats on finding your loved one. Bye-bye.